Hi, I'm Ann. Thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. Today I'm going to show you a fun technique for smoking polenta. So why smoke polenta? I know it's not very traditional, but it's something I explored when I was writing my book, Everyday Whole Grains. I was looking for ways to add more flavor and more robustness to whole grains without adding a lot of calories or fat or sodium. And smoking does that beautifully without adding any calories, any fat, any sodium. Sorry, I've got something on the stove I got to check on. Okay, this is live. Okay, so I'm going to show you a really cool stovetop smoking technique. It works with just one of these disposable aluminum pans. I always keep these on hand now because they make smoking food so easy. You can do it on a whim.
Where do you find this?
You find these in the grocery store, usually near the aluminum foil and the food storage containers. You'll find all different sizes. This is 13 by 9, and I think this size works really well. So, we're going to be creating a makeshift smoker for the stovetop. Now this works, I'm going to show it to you on a gas cooktop, but I know that it works on electric cooktops as well. Either a coil cooktop or one of those flat cooktops. The only type of cooktop this does not work on is induction because it won't get the heat going. So I start with this, and the first thing is to poke some holes on one side, one end of the pan. So I know I'm wielding a big knife, and I just got to get a little stabby, okay? So I'm going to show you, like, your inclination may be to try to keep this on the cutting board and poke it, but look, that's just a pitiful little hole. So the best way I found is just to pick it up and just do it that way. So I've got about 10 holes ranging in size from larger slashes to smaller ones. That's all you need. Okay, and then I have wood chips here. This is hickory wood. You can use apple wood, cherry wood, whatever you like, whatever you have on hand. No need to soak them, so this is really cool. You can do this without having to think ahead. So I'm going to put just a little bit of these chips down on this end of the pan, right over the holes, okay? And then what I have here is my polenta. Now I'm using something that's also a little bit non-traditional, because I want to make sure that I'm making whole grain polenta, and it's hard if you're shopping to find polenta that is explicitly labeled as whole grain. So if it's degermed corn, that means they've removed the germ from the kernel, and that's not whole grain. So what I do is I buy cornmeal, finely ground, that I know is made with whole grain corn, and as a double insurance, I know that it has the Whole Grains Council stamp on it, so I know it's whole grain. And the first ingredient on the ingredient list is enriched whole grain yellow cornmeal. So, whole grain, that's what I'm aiming for. So this is going into this pan, opposite of the wood chips. So it's just going there, I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. And what I'm going to do is partially cover it with oil. I say partially covered just because you'll see in a second. Okay, now I'm going to take it over to the cooktop, and you're going to see how fast and how easy this is, okay? So, I've got it placed over the burner. I have a towel handy, that's important. Okay, so let me light this guy, and you'll see, hopefully, smoking. Already, the wood chips are smoking. I'm going to turn the heat down to medium, and I'm going to completely cover the pan with that foil to lock in the smoke, okay? Because cornmeal is ground, it only takes 2 minutes for it to absorb the full flavor of the smoke. If you were smoking something more dense, it would take a lot longer, but luckily this only takes 2 minutes. So while that's going, right here I have a combination of milk and water that I'm going to cook the polenta in. So it's 2 cups of water, 2 cups of milk, and that's 1 cup of polenta.
It smells so good.
You can already smell it. So if you're just joining us, what I'm doing is showing how to makeshift a stovetop smoker for smoking polenta. Now I also do this with other whole grains in the book. I smoke barley, I smoked some whole wheat flour and make breadsticks with them because I wanted them to taste like beef jerky without adding any meat.
So
and
smart.
It's really cool.
How did you come up with that?
You know, we've done this method before at Cooking Light. We had these wonderful desserts called smoked cherry bombs. You should look those up. Smoked cherry bombs. They're a great dessert for July 4th. And this was a technique that we use there, and I just love how easy it is and how quick it is. So it's been almost 2 minutes. Let me explain a little bit of what else I have going on that we're going to look at. I'm going to show you 2 different ways to serve this polenta. One is as a side dish, just with brown butter on top. So I have some butter melting. We'll take that to the brown stage in a minute. And then I'm going to show how to do a play on shrimp and grits. And so we'll cook some shrimp with tomatoes, garlic, onions, Cajun seasoning. Very simple. Either way, it's going to be the start of a great dinner. So I think it's been about 2 minutes. I'm going to turn this off. And let me show you how you take this over here and show you what to do to kind of get those wood chips out of there, and then how you move on with your polenta. Okay, ready? Woo! Big reveal. See all that smoke? A little bit of this got brown along the edges, which is fine and delicious. Okay, so you already have this foil here. So what I do is I take some tongs and I just remove those chips. They're not all even completely burned, but they produce so much smoke. I just remove them with tongs, place them on the foil. That little guy is an ember. Look at him. And then with any little fragments that are a little hard to get out with the tongs, I just take a damp paper towel and wipe them out. Okay, so if you're just joining us, I have stovetop smoked this polenta. I'm going to cook it up and show you 2 ways to top it. Now, here's a tip from experience. Before you throw this in the garbage, make sure there are no embers that are on fire. I have had a smoldering garbage can before. That was accidental. So you may want to just spritz a little water on here. Just make sure, for safety's sake, it's not still on fire. So I'm going to take the polenta now and just pour it in a bowl just to make it easier to handle. Okay, so this wonderful little smoker has done its job. I usually just wrap everything up. I'll crumple that up and throw it in the garbage when I know it's not on fire. Okay, so I'm going to take this over to the stove. So remember I said I had a combination of water and milk. So I use 2% milk because it makes the polenta really creamy. But I cut it with water because in my experience, and maybe it's just that I'm distracted sometimes, if I use all milk, it tends to scorch. So I have a combination of water and milk, 2 cups of water, 2 cups of 2% milk. And so here's my tip when working with polenta or grits, anything like that. When you add your grain to the simmering liquid, you want to make sure that one hand is whisking constantly. This hand's got to whisk. It's got to keep whisking as this polenta goes in. So otherwise, you know what you end up with? You end up with lumps. So keep this hand always in motion as this is going in, and you will end up with nice creamy polenta. Of course, sometimes I still get lumps. It's okay, you can smush them out with a spoon or a spatula. But this is the best way to try to prevent them. There's a little bit of salt in here too. I've got a teaspoon of kosher salt, and that's kind of it. Now remember, most of the big robust flavor is coming from the fact that this polenta is smoked. Okay, so I said I was going to show you 2 ways to top it. So while that is simmering, I'm going to leave my whisk in there so that I can whisk as I go. In this pan, I have a little bit of butter that I've melted. In this pan, I have some butter that I've melted. I'm going to take this to the brown stage. This will be if you're making a nice side dish, you just want to amp up the flavor and the texture a little bit. You would top the polenta with some brown butter. I'll plate it up so you can see exactly what it looks like. Okay, so in this skillet, I have some butter, and I'm just going to add to that garlic. My pan is not quite hot enough. I should have heard that sizzle.
And while this is heating up, do you always have everything in its place before you start cooking? And do you really find that it's worth it?
It is worth it to have they call it mise en place. It is totally worth it if you can prep ahead and have all that done. To be honest, on a lot of weeknights, I don't. I just put the garlic in, and while it's cooking, I run over and chop the green onions. And while those are cooking, I run over and do something else. It all depends on how much time you have and how organized you are. Ideally, this is the best way to do it, to have everything prepped out.
It's nice to know that you're being realistic.
Look, I gotta be real. I'm not always as organized as I'd like to be. But the thing is, if you're not organized and you're just kind of doing things as I was describing, what might happen is that your garlic, you may start smelling that it's burning while you're chopping your green onions. In that case, just do the smart thing, remove the pan from the heat until you can get to it, okay? You don't have to keep it on the heat. You can stop the train as it's going down the tracks, and then you can restart it. Okay, so got green onions and garlic already smelling delicious. Now I'm going to toss in some fresh thyme. This is one of my favorite herbs in the world. And then some shrimp. So this is peeled and deveined large shrimp. The last time I cooked shrimp on Facebook Live, I left the tails on, which is a total food styling choice because it looks pretty. And I think some of you are like, I would never eat that. I get it. I totally get it. It makes for prettier pictures, but it's not exactly the way you want to eat it. Okay, so shrimp is going in here, green onions, garlic. Now I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of salt-free Cajun seasoning. I like to use salt-free so that I am in control of how much salt there is. I will add my own salt.
You find that in most grocery stores?
Yep. There are two main brands. I think one is the Tony, I don't know how to pronounce it. Tony Sachers. Y'all can tell me. I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. And then I think the other one is something like Louisiana or something like that. But just, you'll find it with the other spice blends in the grocery store. Okay.
Would you call this kind of a play on shrimp and grits?
This is absolutely a play on shrimp and grits. So this is grits with smoked polenta. So shrimp and grits with just a little added oomph. So now I'm going to add some halved grape tomatoes. I love these guys. They're great year round. You don't have to wait for them to come in season. They're quick cooking, quick to prep. Maybe just a few more. Okay. So that's going to get nice and done. And I'm actually going to measure the salt because you can add a little too much. I'm just going to use a half a teaspoon of kosher salt. And then we'll taste it and see if that seems about right. So like I said, when I'm using something like a spice blend, like the Cajun seasoning, I like to choose a salt-free version so that then I add the salt to my preference and to my comfort level. So. Okay, now remember back here I had some butter that I had browned, and I had melted it, and I just want to get it browned. Now, similar to smoking this polenta, I want to brown the butter because it adds more flavor. It's taking the ingredient, a small amount of butter, and by browning it, you'll start to smell it smelling like really toasty and caramelly. It's a way to make a small amount of butter taste like a large amount of butter. It's a way to make the most of what you're using. So that's a great tip for kind of decreasing the amount of saturated fat you're using in your dish, but just making the most of it. Okay, polenta is nice and creamy. I call him pretty much done. Okay, so if you're just joining us, what I've done is I have smoked some polenta and then I've cooked it until it's creamy. I'm going to show two different ways to serve it. One as a side dish with a little topping of brown butter, and the other is as a main dish, kind of play on shrimp and grits. So this is pretty much done. I want it to be a little bit saucy, so I have a little bit of white wine here. If you have some leftover wine, which I know, it seems like a foreign concept to me, but if you have a little leftover wine, you can add it, stir it in.
Or you can just drink the rest of your dinner.
Exactly. Or both. You can have it all. Okay, and I'm just going to let that cook and evaporate a little bit. Some of the shrimp is still slightly not done, so I know it's not going to overcook. I'm just going to let that bubble away and evaporate a little bit. And now, you see the butter? So it has gotten nicely brown. I know this pan is a little schmudgy, but you can still kind of see that the butter has browned. I'm going to take it off the heat. Yeah.
That smells
oh my
delightful.
God. It smells like caramel. It's so good. My polenta is done. So while the shrimp is finishing up, I'm going to plate this up and show you how to serve it as a side dish. So I would serve this as a side dish with roast chicken, with grilled chicken or grilled pork chops. It would go with pretty much anything. Roasted salmon would be lovely. So, creamy polenta. Really enhanced by the smoking process. I know that this is whole grain, so I can feel good about it. And I'm going to spoon on just a little bit of that brown butter. I know there are milk solids in there that are kind of discolored, but they really taste delicious. So just a little drizzle here. Maybe make a nice little swoop. And that would be a lovely side dish to have with just about, honestly, anything. Then I'll show you how to plate up your shrimp and grits. And this will be a wonderful dinner. And I have, I hope, a taster here, a non-biased taster who can tell you how this is. Okay, so my shrimp mixture is cooked nicely. The wine has evaporated down a little bit, but it's still kind of juicy. And I would just dish this up like this. Very simple. You saw me cook it from start to finish. Just green onions, garlic, a little butter, Cajun seasoning, salt, thyme, and you're good to go. So that would be a wonderful dinner. So I hope you've loved learning about this. I wrote a book called Everyday Whole Grains. And what I wanted to do in this book was to show how whole grains can be delicious and fun. They don't have to be earnest and boring. And this is one of those techniques. So I'd love it if you'd let me know if you'd like to learn more techniques like this to bring the most out of your whole grains. So thanks so much for joining us, and come back next time when hopefully I'll be showing some more fun ways to use whole grains.